Welcome back to the Vale Echo. Tonight we step onto the fog-covered grounds of Ohio University, one of the oldest campuses in America where shadows move even when the wind stands still. Among its many historic buildings, one stands apart: Wilson Hall, a structure wrapped in ivy and legend, said to be the most haunted dormitory in the United States, and inside it lies a room so cursed it was permanently sealed, room 428. As the camera drifts through the misty campus, the Gothic architecture looms overhead. The faint yellow glow from the windows flickers like watchful eyes. Every step echoes through the empty courtyard and the night feels unnervingly alive. Students whisper stories about how lights turn on by themselves or how faint knocking sounds can be heard long after midnight. The hallway of Wilson Hall stretches out, dim, silent, and timeless. The fluorescent lights flicker weakly, revealing the faded paint and old wooden doors that have seen generations of students come and go. But at the end of that corridor, a single door stands out, its brass numbers scratched, the edges worn down by countless attempts to open it. Room 428. Some say the door was once always slightly open, as if inviting the curious in. When you stood near it, a faint sound like whispering could be heard from the other side. Others claimed they saw light seeping through the cracks, a cold blue glow that pulsed faintly like a heartbeat. Inside, the room tells its own story. Dust clings to the walls, a single bed sits untouched, and the desk remains covered with forgotten notes and photographs. The air feels heavier here, colder, as though time itself refuses to move. On that desk lies an old Polaroid photograph, a blurry figure captured mid-motion, its face distorted beyond recognition. One student once lived here, drawn to the room's quiet isolation. Late at night, he studied under candlelight, scribbling notes about dreams, spirits, and dimensions beyond the living. Strange symbols appeared on the walls, carved in patterns no one could decipher. He spoke of feeling a presence watching him from the mirror's reflection, breathing just over his shoulder. When others entered, they swore they saw movement in the glass, a woman's faint reflection standing behind them. Her face pale, her expression lost in endless grief. Then, the energy shifted. Books slid from shelves, lamps shattered, and the room erupted in a sudden, violent force of unseen anger. Campus authorities sealed the door, claiming it was for safety. But students knew the truth. They knew something darker lingered within those walls. Even now, when the hall is silent and empty, some still hear the faint scratching from behind that locked door or the whisper of a name carried softly through the vents. And as dawn breaks over Ohio University, the light hits Wilson Hall just right, revealing a shadow behind the window of room 428, still watching, still waiting. The night may end, but the whispers never do. The story of room 428 doesn't end with whispers, it begins with the one who dared to listen to them. Years ago, a psychology student moved into that very room, unaware of the stories buried beneath its floorboards. His name has been lost to time, but the notes he left behind revealed a descent into something far darker than sleep deprivation or stress. He was fascinated by the paranormal, an investigator of consciousness, obsessed with dreams and what he called echoes between worlds. At first, it was harmless curiosity. He wrote about déjà vu, about feeling watched, about hearing faint music when there was none. But as days passed, his writings changed, scribbled faster, sharper, less coherent. He spoke of a woman who appeared in his dreams, standing by the window of room 428, whispering secrets about life beyond death. One evening, while the campus slept under a blanket of fog, the student decided to prove her existence. He brought out candles, ancient symbols drawn from forbidden texts, and began what he believed was a simple ritual of connection. The dim light from the candles cast wild shadows across the walls, and the air grew unnaturally cold. His breath became visible as he chanted, and something unseen began to stir. Moments later, the mirror trembled. Its reflection rippled like water, and from its depths a face emerged, a pale, sorrowful woman, her eyes hollow, her expression both pleading and enraged. The student froze. His notes described her as beautiful and broken, trapped between agony and longing. Then the lights burst, books flew from the shelves, papers spiraled through the air, and the room filled with an unbearable noise, like screams carried through static. Neighbors heard the commotion and rushed into the hallway, only to find the door locked from the inside. By the time campus security forced it open, the room was silent once more. The student was found unconscious on the floor, the candles burned out, his face pale as if drained of life. On the wall behind him, the symbols glowed faintly blue before fading completely. He was taken to the hospital but never spoke again. Rumors spread that he had tried to contact the dead and succeeded. The mirror was removed from the room, yet students still claimed to see a female figure standing inside its reflection when they passed the sealed door. When paranormal investigators later entered room 428, their devices went wild, cold spots, whispers caught on EVP, and a faint voice repeating a single phrase, don't open it again. Even now, that same blue light has been seen through the cracks of the sealed door, pulsing softly as if something inside still breathes. Some believe the student opened a doorway and the presence that crossed through never left. The woman in the mirror remains, watching, waiting, and whoever listens too closely to room 428's silence might just hear her whisper their name next. For decades, room 428 remained locked, its mystery sealed as tightly as the bolts that held the door shut. But the silence surrounding it only made the legends grow louder. Students whispered of the cursed room late at night, and every new generation at Ohio University added their own chapter to the story. The university officially called it structural instability, but the older staff, the ones who had been there long enough to remember, knew that wasn't true. They remembered the night of the students' breakdown, the screams, the light flashing through the window, and the smell of burnt wax that lingered in the hall for weeks. Still, someone always tried to uncover the truth. Years later, a group of paranormal researchers arrived on campus. They carried cameras, EMF detectors, and a determination to uncover what really lay behind that sealed door. The building was quiet as they entered, their flashlights slicing through the dust-filled air. The door to room 428 stood before them, aged cold, with police tape long faded and locks rusted from time. One of the investigators touched the handle, and the temperature dropped instantly. Inside, the room was just as the student had left it. The air was heavy, unmoving. Dust coated the desk where a diary lay open, its pages yellowed and brittle. The entries spoke of nightmares that bled into waking life, voices calling from the walls, hands reaching from the corners of the mirror, and a promise that she would return if he failed to finish the ritual. As the team read the final lines, the air began to vibrate softly. One investigator's breath turned to mist. Their equipment flickered, lights flashing erratically. Then, on the wall, faint symbols began to reappear, glowing softly just as they had years ago. A whisper filled the room, "Help me." The team froze. The mirror that had been removed years ago now stood propped against the wall as if it had never left. Within its reflection, the shape of the woman began to form again, faint, trembling, trapped between existence and memory. Her face was sorrowful, her eyes hollow, and behind her reflection stood the faint silhouette of the student, motionless, fatting like smoke. A surge of cold air rushed through the room and every camera went dark. When the power returned, the mirror was shattered on the floor. In its reflection, no one saw their own faces, only the cracked, empty room staring back. Authorities once again sealed room 428, forbidding anyone from entering. But some say the light still glows faintly through the cracks of the door at night, and faint scratching can be heard from within as though someone, or something, still wants to get out. Today, Wilson Hall stands in silence. Students walk past that corridor a little faster, avoiding eye contact with the locked door, because every now and then a whisper escapes, a voice that sounds almost human, calling softly for help. But those who answer are never the same again.